Hello boys and girls, and welcome to our story time. We're glad you're here. And today we have Scuba. Scuba, I haven't seen you in so long.
Oh, yes, Lily.
Yes, and why do you have sticky notes all over you?
Oh, well, they're smelly sticky notes.
Smelly?
Yeah, I smell some good.
Well, let me smell. Oh, it smells like fish. Is it tuna or salmon?
Oh, the yellow one, there's tuna, and the orange one, there's the salmon ones.
Oh, wow. Yes. And why do you have them all over you?
Oh, well, they smell so good. We thought they were good to eat. But they got them stuck on the tongue, and then they got them stuck on the fur.
Oh, I see.
And now I'm a spotted seal.
You are. Would you like some help?
Yes, Lily.
Okay. Well, let me take some of these off of you. Oh boy, you really smell fishy. There. You're spotless.
No, I'm perfect and clean and pure.
Well, I don't know about that, but you do look clean. Maybe on the outside.
You can't be clean on the inside. That's just impossible.
Well, there is a word for being clean and perfect and pure.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is.
What is it?
Givix.
Javix? Javix?
Yeah, that's it.
Why Javix?
Because it makes your clothes clean and pure and white.
Well, that's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking of holy.
Holy? Full of holes?
No, not that kind of holy. What we call God. God is holy. He's clean and pure and sinless. He's set apart from all of us. In fact, Exodus 15:11 says, "Who is like you among the gods, O Lord? Glorious in holiness, awesome in splendor, doing great wonders." We've been learning about God lately. We found out that He is almighty. He has all power. He is all-knowing. He knows everything there is to know. He's present everywhere. Last week we found out He is the great I am. He's eternal. He always was. And this week, God is holy.
I don't think I quite understand.
Well, I think I brought something to help you understand. And it's right here. I'm going to grab it. This is called, an Ark of the Covenant.
An ark?
Yes, an Ark of the Covenant.
But I thought an ark was, a great big dory that hauled a whole lot of animals and Noah during the flood.
Oh, that kind of ark. Yes, there was a big boat that saved Noah and some animals from the flood. But this was a different kind of ark. It's called the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of God. And Moses, when he was with the people of Israel, traveling in the wilderness, God gave him a commandment to build some things, a tabernacle. And he was given specific instructions to make different furniture for this tabernacle or temple where they would worship God. And one of them, the most important part, was the Ark of the Covenant. And it was a wooden box covered in gold, and on the lid, which was called the mercy seat, there were two angels or cherubim that were modeled out of gold and placed on top. And that was the place where God would meet with His people in the temple. The high priest actually would meet before God, Aaron, in the temple, in the Holy of Holies, before the Ark of the Covenant.
That is some small.
Oh, well, it wasn't that size. That's just a model, a replica of it. But it was more like about 2¼ feet by 3¾ feet. It was much bigger. But when the people saw the Ark of the Covenant, they would realize that it was a symbol or represented the fact that God was with them.
So So it's in our story?
It is in our story, and we find it in a very strange place.
Well, where was it?
Well, I'm going to tell you that. See, the people of Israel were at war in our story today against the Philistines. They were on the battlefield, and things were not looking good for Israel. In fact, many of their men had already died. And they thought, why is God not giving us the victory? And so they thought, well, if we can bring the Ark of the Covenant onto the battlefield, God will surely give us victory. We'll know He is with us. So a messenger was sent, and from Shiloh the priests brought the Ark of the Covenant, carried on their shoulders, and brought it right onto the battlefield.
Oh, wow.
Well, when they arrived, the people of Israel were so excited. They rejoiced with great joy. They thought, now we're going to have the victory. And they rejoiced so much that the earth shook. The Philistine wondered what was going on. They've brought their God into battle. But you see, God is not contained in a box. It only represented that He was there with them. But see, God had made a promise to Israel. He told them, I will give you victories in every battle as long as you follow me and obey me. And at this time, Israel was not obeying God. And even though they brought the Ark of the Covenant onto the battlefield, Israel lost the battle that day. Thousands of soldiers died. And the Ark of the Covenant was captured by the Philistines.
Oh, no, this isn't good news.
Well, it wasn't really good news. Israel was defeated. They wondered, where was God? Why was He not with them? They had some lessons to learn. But you know, the Philistines were also taught something during this time. They captured that ark and they took it to Ashdod, one of their towns, and they put it in the temple of their god, who was a false god called Dagon.
What's a false god?
Well, it's not the real God. It was an idol that they worshipped. And they put the Ark of the Covenant in front of Dagon. And the next morning when they came into their temple, there was Dagon, their false idol, lying with its face on the floor right in front of the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, dear.
So they picked up their idol, stood it back up, and the following morning when they came in, there was Dagon again, lying face down in front of the Ark of the Covenant, although this time the arms and the head had broken off of their idol.
Uh-oh. I don't think Dagon's very strong.
Well, he certainly wasn't strong, not compared to the God of Israel, because He is the true God. And not only that, God also allowed the people of that town to get sick. Their bodies were full of sores and some of them died. And they began to realize, God is punishing us. The God of Israel is punishing us because we've captured the Ark of the Covenant. So the people of Ashdod took the Ark of the Covenant and they delivered it to another town. But the same thing happened there. The people became sick and many of them died. They didn't want the Ark of the Covenant either. So they sent it to another town. 3 different towns ended up with the Ark of the Covenant. The same thing happened in every town.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right. The leaders of the Philistines realized they had a problem. And they said, why is the God of Israel so angry with us and with our God Dagon? We have to do something. We got to get rid of this Ark of the Covenant. We've done wrong in taking it and capturing it. We got to deliver it back to the people of Israel. So what they decided to do was they were going to build a cart and they would put the Ark of the Covenant on that cart. But they also would prepare some gifts for the God of Israel. So they made some gifts out of gold and they put them on the cart with the Ark of God. And then to pull this cart, they chose 2 cows, and these cows had recently given birth to baby cows, to calves. And they thought, this is how we'll know if God has decided to accept what we've offered him. If he will take away the sickness from us, we will send these cows who don't want to be away from the baby cows. They'll want to nurse them with milk. We're going to send them with this cart, and if this cart goes into the land of the Israelites on its own with those cows, we'll know that God has accepted our sacrifice, our gifts. Well, the leaders of the land of the Philistines, they followed those cows. They were going on their own, pulling that cart, mooing the whole way. They finally arrived in the land of Israel. And the Philistines could breathe a sigh of relief. They now knew that God, the God of the Israelites, had delivered the cart back to his own people, the Ark of God.
I bet the people of Israel were excited.
Oh, they were. They had a great sacrifice on the altar to God. And as they were celebrating, some of the men of Israel, they didn't really show honor for God because the Ark of the Covenant was holy. They weren't supposed to touch it. And 70 of those men went over to the Ark and they took the lid off and they looked inside, and when they did, they died.
Oh no, why did that happen?
Because God is holy and we are not. We are sinners. We do wrong. We disobey, just like they did. They knew they were not supposed to look inside the Ark of the Covenant. They weren't supposed to touch it. It was only to be moved by the priests, and only at certain times. So, then they realized they had done wrong. The people of Israel, they hadn't followed all of God's commands. You know, God is holy, and there's no way we can come into his presence. But God made it possible. He made it possible because he sent his son Jesus. Jesus came to earth, lived a perfect life, a holy life, but then he died on a cross and paid for our sin, paid the punishment for our sin. And when we come to Jesus and we ask him to forgive us, not only does he forgive us, he washes us as white as snow. And we take on his righteousness. He makes us right in God's sight so that we can come into the very presence of God. We can talk to a holy God, and he doesn't turn us away. He loves us. Well, boys and girls, I hope you've learned something about God today, how holy God is. And because he is holy, we should be very careful how we use his name. We should not use his name in a way that doesn't show honor to him. That's something we need to be very careful of. God is holy. We need to treat him as a holy, perfect God and show him the respect that he deserves. Well, boys and girls, thanks for listening. And I hope you come to know this holy God. Remember, he loves you. Say goodbye, Scuba.
Bye, me duckies.